Have you ever felt trapped in a loop of negative thoughts, like no matter what you do, that voice in your head keeps whispering, "You're not good enough," or "This will never work out"? It can feel overwhelming, like you're stuck in a pattern you can't break. But what if I told you? Those thoughts aren't facts. They're habits, patterns your brain has learned over time. And like any habit, they can be changed. In this video, we're going to explore what negative thinking really is, why it feels so powerful, and most importantly, how you can break free from it. So stick around, because this might just change the way you see yourself and your world. Whether you're battling self-doubt, dealing with anxiety, or just feeling emotionally drained from trying to hold it all together, negative thinking is something we all face. The good news is, it doesn't have to control you. By the end of this video, you'll have practical tools you can start using right away to challenge those thoughts and begin building a more positive, empowered mindset. Let's begin by understanding what negative thinking actually is. It's more than just feeling down or having a bad day. It's a mental lens, a filter that colors how you see everything around you. It's that constant stream of internal dialogue telling you things like, "You're going to mess this up," or "Why bother trying?" Over time, those thoughts don't just influence how you feel, they start shaping your identity. But here's something crucial: those thoughts are not reality. They're not facts. They are patterns your brain has picked up, often from past experiences, stress, or fear, and the more you repeat them, the more familiar they become. Your brain starts defaulting to them, like muscle memory. Why does it happen? Believe it or not, your brain is trying to protect you. It's wired to look for threats and problems, because that's how our ancestors survived. But in today's world, that ancient wiring backfires. Instead of helping, it makes you constantly scan for what might go wrong, internally and externally. If you've ever felt like your mind is working against you, you're not alone. Most people don't even realize that this negativity bias exists, or that they have the power to interrupt it. Take a moment to think of how this shows up in daily life. Maybe you're getting ready for a job interview, and the thought hits, "I'm not qualified for this." Or you make a small mistake in a presentation and immediately think, "I always mess things up." These thoughts might feel convincing, but they're often exaggerations, not reflections of reality. Let's dig a little deeper into how this works inside the brain. Every time you think a thought, your brain fires a signal between neurons. When you think the same type of thought over and over, especially negative ones, you strengthen the connection between those neurons. It's like carving a mental groove that becomes deeper and easier to fall into each time. Eventually, negative thoughts don't even feel like choices anymore. They feel automatic. This is why it's so important to recognize that you're not broken. You're just practicing a pattern. And the great thing about patterns is they can be rewired. Now, one major reason we get stuck in these loops is because of something called cognitive distortions. These are mental traps, ways of thinking that twist how we see reality, usually in an unhelpful direction. Maybe you've fallen into all or nothing thinking, where everything feels like success or total failure. Like, if I don't do this perfectly, I've completely failed. Or perhaps you've experienced overgeneralization, taking one mistake and applying it to your whole life story. I failed this once, so I'll always fail. Then there's catastrophizing, jumping to the worst possible conclusion. If I don't pass this exam, I'll ruin my future. It sounds dramatic when we say it out loud, but in the moment, it can feel very real. These distortions might seem harmless, but when repeated over time, they begin to feel like truth. And when you live according to distorted thoughts, you limit what you believe is possible for yourself. Now let's talk about how all of this impacts your life beyond your internal world. When negative thoughts take over, they don't just live in your mind, they begin affecting your emotional and physical health. Constant stress from self-criticism and worry can lead to anxiety, depression, even physical symptoms like fatigue, tension, or insomnia. It's like wearing a pair of glasses that only show you what's wrong, blocking out everything that's good or hopeful. And it doesn't stop there. Your relationships can suffer, too. When you're stuck in self-doubt or feel unworthy, it becomes hard to connect with others. You might pull back, avoid vulnerability, or assume others are judging you even when they're not. That inner narrative becomes a wall between you and the people you care about. Negative thinking can also hold you back professionally. You might second-guess your abilities, stay silent during meetings, or avoid going after opportunities because you've convinced yourself you're not ready. In reality, your skills may be more than enough, but your mindset tells you otherwise, and so the cycle continues. Doubt leads to avoidance. Avoidance leads to missed growth. And missed growth feeds the doubt even more. But here's the truth, just because you think something doesn't make it real. You can interrupt the cycle. You can learn to catch those thoughts, challenge them, and choose a new story. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Let's now explore one of the most transformative parts of this entire journey, learning how to identify and challenge negative thoughts. Because before we can overcome them, we have to know they're even there. Most of the thoughts we have on a daily basis fly under the radar. They come and go without us really questioning them, shaping how we feel, how we behave, and even how we define ourselves without our full awareness. Think about that for a second. The way you view yourself and the world could be the result of repeated thought patterns that you've never consciously examined. Negative thinking often starts subtly. You wake up feeling a little off. Someone doesn't reply to your message as fast as usual. You forget something small at work or school, and suddenly, a stream of negative commentary begins. I always mess up. They probably don't like me. I can't do anything right. These thoughts creep in fast and quietly, and the emotions follow: stress, frustration, shame. The first key to taking your power back is noticing, catching that thought while it's happening, bringing it out of the shadows and into the light. The next time you feel that sinking feeling in your stomach, or notice a tightness in your chest, pause. Instead of pushing it away or letting it spiral, ask yourself, what's the thought that just passed through my mind? Sometimes it's loud and clear. Other times, it takes a little digging, but it's there, waiting to be acknowledged. Try this with me now. Bring to mind a recent moment where you felt down, anxious, or defeated. Can you remember what you were telling yourself in that moment? Maybe it was something like, I'm just not good enough, or this always happens to me. Now ask yourself, was that thought based on actual facts? Or was it driven by emotion, fear, or habit? When you begin to question your negative thoughts, something amazing happens. You create space between you and them. Instead of being controlled by the thought, you're observing it from the outside. This distance is where clarity lives. So once you've recognized a thought and pulled it into awareness, the next step is to gently challenge it. And I do mean gently. This isn't about arguing with yourself or denying your feelings. It's about getting curious. Start by asking yourself, is this thought 100% true? Can I absolutely know that it's real often? The answer is no. Most negative thoughts are exaggerations, worst-case scenarios, or old narratives from past wounds. Maybe that thought, I always fail, feels familiar, but is it accurate? Have there been times when you succeeded? Even in small ways, chances are. There have been many. And when you start remembering those moments, the thought begins to lose its grip. Another useful lens is to imagine a friend coming to you with the same thought. Picture someone you care about saying, I'm worthless, or I never get anything right. Would you agree with them? Would you say, Yeah, you're probably right. Of course not. You'd comfort them. You'd help them see what they're missing. You'd offer compassion and a more balanced perspective. So why not offer that same grace to yourself? Now comes the part that truly changes your relationship with your mind: reframing. Reframing is not pretending everything's perfect. It's not about slapping a fake smile over deep pain. It's about choosing thoughts that are realistic, balanced, and kind. If your automatic thought is, "I'm terrible at this," a reframed version might be, "This is hard for me right now, but I'm learning and getting better." That's honest. It acknowledges the challenge without defining your identity by it. Over time, reframing becomes a habit. Your brain starts to default to thoughts that support your growth instead of holding you back. And that shift from harsh judgment to gentle encouragement can change everything. But of course, this isn't just about catching and flipping individual thoughts. To truly shift your mindset, it helps to integrate daily practices that support this new way of thinking. Practical strategies you can turn to, especially on the tough days. Let's begin with self-compassion, because without it, nothing else sticks. Self-compassion is about meeting your imperfections with understanding instead of punishment. And it's hard, especially if you've spent years criticizing yourself as a way to improve. But the truth is, growth thrives in kindness, not cruelty. The next time you make a mistake, instead of launching into self-blame, pause, take a breath, and say something like, "Everyone messes up sometimes. What matters is how I respond." Or even just, "This doesn't define me." You'd be surprised how healing those simple words can be. Another powerful way to retrain your brain is through positive affirmations. These aren't magic spells, but when used consistently, they help interrupt negative loops and reinforce better ones. You might feel silly at first, most people do, but there's science behind this. Repeating positive, present tense statements like, "I am capable," or "I choose progress over perfection," can slowly shift your internal narrative. And repetition is key. Your brain believes what it hears most often, so give it something empowering to work with. Now let's talk about gratitude. This practice might seem simple, but it's one of the most effective ways to shift your mental and emotional state. When you focus only on problems, your world feels small and heavy, but when you actively look for what's working, no matter how small, you begin to expand your perspective. Right now, think of 3 things you're grateful for. Go ahead, pause and let them come to mind. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's the way your coffee smelled this morning. Maybe it's a friend who checked in on you. These aren't distractions, they're anchors. They remind you that life is bigger than your current struggle. Finally, be mindful of what you're feeding your mind. The media you consume, the people you follow, the conversations you engage in, all of it shapes your mental space. If your feed is full of comparison, criticism, or constant bad news, it's no wonder your mindset feels drained. Curate your environment. Follow creators who inspire you. Spend time with people who believe in you. Listen to podcasts or read books that lift you up instead of pulling you down. Just like your physical body needs healthy food and rest, your mind needs nourishment too. And sometimes, that nourishment comes from the boundaries you set and the voices you choose to listen to. The more you commit to these daily shifts, the more you observe your thoughts. Challenge the harsh ones. Reframe them with kindness. And support your mind with positive inputs. The more resilient your thinking becomes. You begin to trust yourself. You learn that not every thought deserves your belief. And you realize that peace, confidence, and clarity aren't things you find. They're things you practice into being. Rewiring your mindset isn't about flipping a mental switch and suddenly becoming an optimist overnight. It's not about denying pain, pretending everything's fine, or forcing yourself to smile when you don't feel like it. Building a positive mindset is more like tending to a garden. It takes consistency, patience, and small acts of care, day after day, to nourish new growth. The journey begins with intention. You have to decide that your inner world is worth investing in. You have to believe even just a little that your thoughts can change and that your patterns aren't permanent. And from that intention, you begin to plant new habits, small ones, manageable ones, not because small is easier, but because small is sustainable. Maybe it starts with one gentle ritual, writing down 3 things that went well today. They don't have to be big or impressive. Maybe you drank enough water. Maybe you finally took that walk. Maybe you reached out to someone, even if your mind told you not to. These little acknowledgments may seem trivial, but they tell your brain, we're paying attention to the good now. Or perhaps your new habit is 5 minutes of stillness. You sit down, close your eyes, and breathe, not to escape your thoughts, but to observe them without judgment. That quiet time becomes a reset button for your nervous system. Over time, your body begins to associate that pause with safety, with calm. It becomes a habit of self-regulation. Other days, the habit might be choosing a kinder response to yourself. You'll catch yourself thinking, I'm a failure. And instead of agreeing, you'll pause and soften the tone. That was tough, but I'm doing my best. That shift won't always feel natural at first. And that's okay. You're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to be intentional. And that's what creates change. But here's what often gets in the way: impatience. We live in a world that praises quick fixes and fast results. We expect transformation to happen on a timeline we can control. So when progress feels slow, or we fall back into old thought patterns, we assume something is wrong with us. We start to believe we'll never get there. The truth is, no meaningful change happens without setbacks. There will be days when your thoughts feel heavier, days when your old stories resurface and try to pull you back. Those days aren't failures. They're just part of the process. They're reminders that healing isn't linear, that growth has dips and plateaus and rest stops along the way. This is where self-compassion becomes critical, not just as a tool, but as a mindset. You learn to meet yourself where you are, not where you wish you were. You learn to celebrate tiny victories the moment you chose a healthier thought, the day you caught yourself before spiraling, the hour you stayed present when your mind wanted to escape. These aren't small, they're foundational. Eventually, the space between the negative thought and your reaction begins to widen. That space is everything. In that space, you can pause, you can reflect, you can choose. And that choice, the ability to respond instead of react, is the heart of a positive mindset. What's beautiful about this shift is that it doesn't just affect your inner world. It ripples out into how you show up in your relationships, your work, your dreams. When you start believing that your thoughts don't control you, you begin showing up more fully, more boldly. You take risks. You speak your truth. You stop shrinking yourself to fit the old narrative. You also become more resilient, not because life gets easier, but because your inner voice becomes more supportive. Challenges still come, but your response is different. You approach problems with curiosity instead of panic. You see obstacles as growth points, not proof of failure. That's what mindset transformation looks like in action. And so, as we reach the close of this conversation, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered together. At the core of overcoming negative thinking is the ability to become aware, to recognize when your thoughts are dragging you into a place that doesn't serve you, to slow down enough to ask, is this true? Is this helpful? Is there a kinder way to see this? That awareness alone begins to break the cycle. Then comes the courage to challenge those thoughts, not to shame them, but to question them, to shine a light on what your mind is telling you and decide if that narrative is worth carrying forward. You begin to see that most negative thoughts aren't facts, they're echoes. Echoes of old fears, past wounds, societal pressures. And once you see that, you can begin to rewrite the script. And finally, you anchor that shift through practice, through daily habits, however small, that teach your brain a new language, a language of self-trust, of patience, of possibility. That's how you retrain your mind, not by force, but by repetition, not by perfection, but by showing up. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't need to have every answer right now. All it takes is a willingness to try, a willingness to question, a willingness to be a little more compassionate with yourself today than you were yesterday. And if this message resonated with you, if it gave you something to think about, something to feel, or something to try, don't let it end here. Take it with you. Carry it into your next conversation, your next quiet moment, your next difficult day. Let it remind you that you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not defined by your thoughts. You are the one who hears them, and you have the power to change them. If you found this video helpful, I'd be so grateful if you gave it a like or shared it with someone who might need it. And if you want more conversations like this, more tools for mental clarity, personal growth, and emotional well-being, feel free to subscribe. I'm here to walk this journey with you. And before we go, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one thought you're ready to challenge? Or maybe one small habit you're committing to starting this week? Sharing your story might inspire someone else to take that same first step. Thank you for spending this time with me, for listening, for reflecting, for being willing to grow. I'll leave you with this final reminder. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them, and that awareness has power. So take that power with you, use it gently, and begin again one thought, one breath, one choice at a time.